but this is going to be out there forever. On today's episode, you're going to hear from Maryn Cannon, who showed us that forever really might not be forever, as she releases a new edition of her book just 12 months after she put out the first edition.
It felt really satisfying because I felt I knew what to expect handing it in this time, and I felt like I had given it the time that it had deserved. But at the same time, it also, there's kind of this sentiment of like, wow, there's, I know that I could do a version 3 a year from now and have it be so much better than it is now. So it's kind of like, I think something that I will never stop. The topic is something that I will always be collecting information on. But I'm definitely proud of this second version, and that's exciting to think, to have a big part of the second version is that I incorporated more of my own story in it and wrote. So I almost doubled the word count.
You did.
And a lot of that was just putting my own experience into and weaving it with the stories of the women that I included previously.
Many of us hold off on putting things out there, sharing things, releasing things, either our first book, our first podcast season, a video show, whatever it may be, because we're afraid that what we put out there is going to live forever. And in some cases it will. But as you hear in the story of Maryn, she was able to take some of the things she didn't love about the first edition of her book. The fact that her personal story wasn't in it enough, the fact that she didn't have all the things she covered in her interviews included in it, and be able to say, I have an opportunity to do it again. I remember when I was able to sit down with Maryn just about 5 months after she released the new edition and said, hey, have you thought about doing a new edition? She said, I'd love to. Now is the perfect time of it. And for many of us, we get worried about releasing that first edition because we think it's permanent. It turns out, as you'll learn from Maryn, there's no such thing as permanent. In fact, she's already thinking about the third edition and the fourth edition and even beyond that.
I previously to this whole process would never have found myself on these like forums and blogs, etc., and just have really enjoyed following those in the past year, and actually included a lot of the thoughts of those authors in this next edition, which I think is cool because in some cases I would input, a quote and a little piece about this article or this blog post that supported the chapter, and in other cases I included like a contradicting point that really just made either my argument stronger or increased the complexity of the discussion. Like it just was strengthened by the other voices that I've heard in the past year also. So
it's interesting, like you were certainly one that was like, I want to write a new edition. Like I feel like there was a lot more for you to say and those sorts of things. Yeah. So what had been sort of like leading you up to that point? Because you published, crazy enough, you published a year ago from yesterday. Kind of like interestingly enough, and you started the new version like formally right in January, so like 7 or 8 months later. So over that sort of period of time, from the point you published to sort of the winter, those 7 months, what was going through your mind about the book? How did you feel about it? What were you thinking about it? Like where were you at headwise at that point?
Well, to be honest, when it would come up with people that I had written a book, like either in job interviews or conversations with new people that I met, I was proud that I had written a book, but I wasn't necessarily proud of like the length or the content, or I just felt like I was capable of making a product that was more aligned with how I view kind of the heft of a book, the impact that a book can have. And I think that the reason why I didn't feel that way the first time through was just because it was also new and I kind of didn't know what I was doing when I started the process. And
neither did we.
Yeah. So
Don't worry.
So it was kind of a very time pressured situation, and it was really exciting to have the prospect of returning to this, knowing what I was doing and having time to think about it. And I really enjoy writing.
Do you now see yourself, like, as soon as you publish this one, saying, I'm thinking about my next book? Like,
yeah, I think that it would be definitely it's not unrealistic to think of doing a third edition.
Was it unrealistic to think of a second edition in your head before this started?
No, it wasn't, because I still am in this space in school and have the time, and so it was a realistic goal. I just, again, right now, looking forward, I just don't know what I'm going to be facing, but I see it being realistic in the future, I would say. But it is a lot of work. Again, like if I wanted to make changes that were actually, worthy of a second round of publishing, it was going to take some time, and I knew that.